They called him a failure, a dreamer, chasing things no one could understand. But then, right in the middle of a lavish dinner party, his brother's fiancée looked him dead in the eye and asked, "You're the founder of Netloop, right?" How do you think he reacted? Follow this raw, emotional, and unexpected story where the truth finally finds its voice. Dinner at the Morgan household felt more like a ritual. White porcelain dishes, perfectly pressed tablecloth, red wine glasses lined up in order. But what wasn't on the table was what everyone could feel. Tension sharp as wire, like each person was playing a part they didn't choose. Ryan, the eldest, sat at the head of the table. His mother, Diane, sat opposite, her voice soft, polished, but laced with claws. His father, Mark, mostly stayed quiet, occasionally adjusting his glasses whenever things got a little too tense. Alex sat to Ryan's left, one seat away from their mother. He didn't say much, not because he had nothing to say, but because he knew every word he spoke would be picked apart like a bad resume. "You're still working on that thing?" Diane set down her fork and knife, turning to Alex, her voice smooth as silk. "That software project or whatever." "Still at it," Alex answered plainly, nothing more. "Got any clients yet?" she pressed. "Or still in the testing phase?" "A few clients," he said, pouring more water into his glass. "Mostly small businesses." "I remember." Diane turned to Ryan, raising her voice just enough. "By the time you were that age, you were already managing nearly a dozen employees, weren't you?" Ryan chuckled, leaning back slightly in his chair. "I guess I just got lucky. Right place, right time." Alex didn't look at him. He just cut his meat and ate slowly. "I have a nephew who used to do software too," Aunt Marcia, Diane's younger sister, chimed in. "But he gave it up and went into accounting, more practical. Tech is brutal these days." "So what exactly are you working on?" Uncle Ted leaned his elbow on the table. "An app, or like a website." "It's a supply chain management platform," Alex replied. "For small businesses, tracks inventory, shipping." "Sounds interesting," Ted nodded, though his eyes said otherwise. "But do people really need that? They've all got SAP already." Diane jumped in as if to defend him, but really to twist the knife. "Alex is still testing things out. He likes to try a lot of different things, don't you, dear?" Alex said nothing. He stared at his plate. The chicken sauce hit his nose hard, but he couldn't taste a thing. Ryan asked casually, "So what's next? Applied anywhere yet?" "I'm raising funds. Got a few VCs getting back to me." "Raising funds?" Uncle Ted let out a short laugh. "Careful with that. Could end up losing both time and money." "And what about a girlfriend?" Diane shifted gears. "I remember you were seeing someone. Or have you been too busy lately?" "Broke up," Alex answered, eyes still on the table. "Oh, that's a shame," she said, though her smile held zero regret. "Women these days like men with a clear plan." His father looked up then, like he was about to say something, but didn't. He just gave a small nod to himself. Ryan chuckled and patted Alex on the shoulder. "It's all right. Everyone goes through a rough patch. Just keep at it." "Your brother gets it," Diane added. "Ryan's had his struggles too, but he knew when to stop and pivot." Alex heard every word. There were no insults, just concern and those sharp-edged comparisons wrapped in kindness. The conversation shifted to the engagement. Who would give speeches, the floral arrangements, the appetizer menu? Diane turned to Ryan. "You think Grace will like it? I picked a silver gray backdrop, much classier than beige." Alex stood up, polite. "Excuse me, I'm going down to the basement for a bit. Need to grab something." "You still keep things down there?" Diane frowned. "When are you planning to clear it out?" "Soon," he said. He didn't look at anyone as he walked away from the table. Alex walked down the hallway, then down the wooden stairs. Each step felt like a heavy breath. In the basement, the old room he'd lived in for nearly a year after leaving his first job, everything was just as it had been. Gray walls, gray fabric chair, the old wooden desk still holding a sticky note on the corner that read, "Keep building." He sat down, resting his forehead in his hand. The room was silent, just yellow light and the damp smell of mold. Alex pulled out his phone and opened his email. Nothing new. He wasn't waiting for a call. He wasn't waiting for validation. But deep in his chest, there was a stretch of emptiness that had just pulled wider, and while the voices and laughter carried on upstairs, Alex sat there alone, not needing to be seen, but also done with being underestimated. He didn't come down to grab something. Truth is, This was the only place in the house where he didn't have to play a role. Not the washed-up youngest son, not the guy who never finishes anything. Alex had lived down here for almost a year after quitting his first job. He was 25 then, walking away from a stable position at a logistics company to build his own product. That one sentence was enough to trigger a full-on family intervention. Diane said, "No one walks away when things are going well, unless something's wrong." Ryan texted him privately, "Do whatever you want, just don't let mom and dad see you fail." Alex tried. He buried himself in code, built the system from scratch, pitched from morning to night. But the model didn't quite hit the market's need, and everything collapsed within 6 months. He moved out of his apartment and back here, to this basement, with 2 boxes and half of his belief still intact. Diane never said anything, but she cut the basement's power after 10 p.m. Ryan stopped by and handed him a list of companies that were hiring. "Not saying anything, man, just you should have a monthly paycheck like an adult." He took the list without reacting. But that night, lying on the old sofa, he opened his laptop and started writing the first lines of code for Netloop. Then there was Emma. At first she said, "I like that you're carving your own path." But just 3 months after he quit his job, she started asking, "When are you planning to settle down?" And one Friday night, after a cheap, quiet dinner, she stood up, grabbed her purse. "I need a man who knows where he's going." Alex didn't stop her, he just nodded. That same night, he created Netloop's first Git repo. He didn't blame them. Everyone wants to see the people they love as focused, accomplished, someone to be proud of. What they don't say out loud is, if you don't fit the mold, you're a failure. "You're smart, but you're not realistic." Ryan said that after Alex shared his idea for an API that could automatically connect warehouses and shipping providers. Ryan had been sitting at the kitchen table, flipping through client files. "If I were you, I'd sell that to Amazon and retire." Alex didn't argue. He knew Ryan lived by the fast-hit mindset. Direct, fast, take the bite and swallow. But Alex moved in smaller steps, building something no one really understood, at least no one in this house. Netloop wasn't some genius idea. It was a straightforward tool to help small and mid-sized businesses manage inventory, shipping, and order tracking, all in one dashboard. No hype, no flashy fundraising, no trends. But it worked, and as of last month, they'd just hit 12,000 users. No one in the family knew that number. Not because he kept it secret, but because no one ever asked. He opened his laptop, sitting at the old desk in the basement, the yellow light casting a tired glow on the screen. In front of him was the pitch deck. 12 pages he'd finished just that morning. Every line, every chart, every real case study, built with precision. In the corner was a draft email to Everline Ventures, a small fund known for backing early-stage startups whose founders were often underestimated. He hovered the mouse over the send button, paused, took a deep breath. Sometimes one person believing you is enough. Just one. The next morning, Alex woke up earlier than usual. He hadn't slept much. The basement didn't block sound well. Footsteps and chairs dragging upstairs echoed all night. He couldn't make out what anyone was saying, just bits of laughter, then silence, then laughter again. Like even the air decided who got to be happy. Ryan's engagement party was held at the Reverie Hotel, a boutique spot right in downtown Charlotte. The place was known for its floor-to-ceiling glass walls, long tables draped in linen, soft golden lighting, and a sleek modern bar. Every detail had been handpicked by Grace. Stylish, intentional, polished. Alex arrived late. Not on purpose, but he hadn't rushed either. He parked in the hotel's underground garage, took the elevator up to the 3rd floor by himself. When the doors opened, he stepped into a room glowing with light, laughter, and the scent of high-end perfume. No one noticed him at first. They were too busy laughing, clinking glasses, talking about real estate, housing prices, and summer trips to France. He stood by the door for a few seconds, adjusted his collar, smoothed out the faint wrinkles on his gray suit. An old suit. Very old. Still fit him, but if anyone looked closely, they'd realize it was the same one he wore to his graduation. 5 years ago. "Alex?" A woman's voice called from the right. "Aunt Marcia, wearing that old suit again, huh?" Her tone was half joke, half jab. He smiled and nodded. "Still fits. Yeah, good. Staying in shape matters, Marcia said, then turned away, adding to the person next to her, "The youngest still hasn't really come around, huh?" He heard it. Wasn't surprised, just felt a sharp pinch somewhere in his chest. Diane spotted him from across the room. She didn't call him over, just gave a small nod, then turned back to her conversation with another couple. When the introductions started, Ryan walking Grace from group to group, he stopped at Alex's spot for less than 10 seconds. "My brother?" Ryan said quickly. "He's working on some tech stuff or whatever." Then he turned to someone else and started talking about the real estate market in Florida. No one followed up. No one stuck around. Alex walked over to the bar and grabbed a glass of water. He didn't want a drink. He just needed something to hold. The laughter kept rolling. Someone brought up their new Tesla, then shifted to stocks, then to who was investing in the new resort in Asheville. Uncle Harry walked over and placed a hand on Alex's shoulder. "You ever think about working with Ryan?" he asked, the tone friendly, but the eyes sizing him up. "Your brother's doing well. You could help out, at least you'd have a paycheck." "I'm good, Uncle," Alex replied with a small smile. "Good? I just don't see what's good about it yet," he went on. "Look, I'm being honest. A man over 25 without steady income should rethink things." "I'm building my own product," Alex said. "Yeah, I know, but sometimes you've got to press pause on the dreams and just live first. You get what I mean?" Alex nodded. His eyes dropped slightly. He didn't say more. Didn't push back, didn't explain. Not because he had nothing to say, but because he knew any explanation would just circle back as proof he was failing. In this room, everyone had already decided he was struggling, and they'd only accept him if he came back with something real. A salary, a contract, an office, a nameplate. He looked around. The whole room seemed to pulse with a different kind of life. Warm hugs, congratulations, wedding plans. Everything lit up. Everything beautiful. Except him. He stood in the middle of it all. And didn't belong. But he didn't leave. He stood there quietly, water in hand, not to be noticed, just to stand tall. The quietest way not to fall. Alex stayed in the corner of the room, near the bar, still holding his now warm glass of water. He didn't notice how long he'd been standing there. Laughter, clinking glasses, soft piano music, it all floated past like a muted video. He wasn't part of the crowd, and no one seemed to need to know what he was thinking. Then, through all of that, something shifted. Grace. She walked toward him slowly, still holding her glass of red wine. Her silk blue dress hugged her with quiet elegance. Her eyes didn't scan the room like someone looking for the next big name to greet. She looked straight at him. "You're Alex, right?" He turned to her, gave a small nod. "Yeah," she smiled. Not performative, not rehearsed. "I'm Grace." "I know, congrats to you and Ryan," he said. Polite, measured. Just like every social exchange you're expected to offer at a party like this. Grace nodded, paused for a beat, then set her wineglass down on the nearby table. "Are you the one behind Netloop?" The question dropped into the room like a note out of tune. Alex furrowed his brow, caught off guard. Not out of fear, but sheer surprise. Out of everything that could have happened tonight, he didn't expect anyone in this room to know or care about Netloop. "You know Netloop?" Grace nodded, eyes steady on his. "I'm an internal advisor for a logistics company in Raleigh. We switched to Netloop 3 months ago. At first, I thought it was built by a team that already raised Series A." Alex paused. "No, it's just me and 2 friends. You're the lead?" "Yeah." Grace crossed her arms, her gaze shifting from curious to analytical. "I like how you designed the tracking interface. It flows intuitively. Most older systems get messy with too many tabs. Netloop keeps it clean." Alex let out a quiet breath, almost not believing this conversation was real. This was the first time anyone connected to his family had spoken about his work with any real understanding. "We've been targeting the smaller end of the market," he said. "Not trying to compete head-on with the big players, mostly going after small to mid businesses, the ones who can't afford SAP or Oracle." Grace nodded, like she'd already thought that through herself. "And low setup costs, right? Web-based UI, minimal integration requirements." "Exactly," Alex replied. For the first time that evening, his words came quicker. "We're taking the long route, no flashy marketing, but our retention's high. We focus on personal support. We've hit 12,000 users." Grace smiled. Light, but genuine. Impressive. "Really?" He didn't know how to respond. A thank you? A nod? He just stood still for a moment, letting the feeling of being seen, soak through the layers of armor he'd been carrying for years. I've been curious for a while, Grace continued. Netloop was mentioned at the end of a research report I read. I traced it back and found you. I just didn't expect you to be Ryan's brother. Alex gave a slight shrug. You're the first person here to call what I do by its real name. Because I care. Another pause, but not awkward. Just quiet. The kind of quiet where two people are reevaluating each other, not with looks, but by how the other gives weight to what they say. Grace glanced across the room to where Ryan was chatting with a group of guests. Then she looked back at Alex. They don't get you, she said, but I see you, and I think you're on the right path. No other sound followed, just the light catching part of Alex's face. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to, because for the first time someone said what he'd been thinking. Before he even had the chance to say it himself. They stood there, side by side, two people out of sync with the crowd, surrounded by clinking glasses and loud retellings of success stories. Just as the conversation between Alex and Grace ended, Ryan walked up. He'd just finished working his way through the left side of the room, holding a glass of champagne. His suit was flawless as always, and that half smile, polished and ready on demand, was already in place. Grace, where'd you go? Mom's looking for you for the group photo, Ryan said, resting a hand lightly on her shoulder. Grace turned to him, her expression calm, but something in her eyes had clearly shifted. Did you know your brother is the founder? The question landed. Not loud, not sharp, but just clear enough for a few people nearby to pause and look up. Ryan froze for a beat, then let out a laugh, the kind that tries to swallow a bitter pill without choking on it. Yeah, he's still just experimenting, he said, shrugging slightly, eyes drifting elsewhere, clearly wanting to escape the moment as fast as possible. Grace didn't back off. That experiment has over 12,000 users, she said it slowly, clearly. Not with anger, but with a precision that cut straight through the glittering room. A few nearby conversations stopped. The clinking of glasses faded. Alex still stood there, silent, his hand resting on the edge of the wooden table. The chill of the water glass touched his skin, but he no longer felt it. Ryan gave a stiff laugh, trying to smooth things over. Well, he's doing some tech thing, right? Who even understands apps these days? Grace didn't smile. She held his gaze. I think you should reconsider how lightly you treat your brother. Not everyone needs validation to build something real. Diane appeared almost instantly. She always did, sensing tension from a distance like radar. She walked over quickly, but with her usual calm exterior perfectly intact. What's going on here? She asked, her voice laced with both concern and control. Grace smiled, her tone softening as if nothing had happened. Oh, we were just talking about Netloop, the app Alex built. It's actually really useful for small businesses. I'm using it. Diane paused just slightly. Her eyes flicked to Alex, then back to Grace. Oh, is that so? That's nice. Grace, darling, could you help me with something? A few of the flower arrangements are out of place. You've got great taste. Would you help me fix them? Grace glanced at Alex for a split second before walking off with Diane. She didn't say another word. She didn't have to. The room filled with voices again. But it didn't sound quite like it did before. A few people nearby, Aunt Marcia, Uncle Harry, and a couple of guests, began whispering among themselves. The words were unclear, but the way they looked at Alex had shifted. No more pity, no more invisibility. Now it was something closer to caution, maybe even respect. Alex didn't move, shoulders square, chin slightly lifted. He didn't need to say a word. He'd spent his whole life waiting for a moment to finally speak up. But today he didn't have to. Grace, someone who had only just entered this family, saw him first and spoke first, refusing to look away, refusing to play blind. No one pushed back. No one said she was wrong. No one dared call him a failure now. A silence rippled through the room, not awkward, but resonant. A silence of rethinking, reassessing, resetting. Alex took a deep breath and looked out toward the tall window. Outside, dusk had settled. Streetlights were starting to glow, and for the first time his silence wasn't survival. It was a statement. The party wasn't over, but Alex was already gone. No scene, no goodbyes. He slipped out quietly, while everyone else stayed wrapped up in photos, music, and conversations that had nothing to do with him. The elevator to the hotel's parking garage paused on the second floor, opened to no one, then continued. He stood alone, fingertips brushing the cool metal edge of the button panel, head tilted back slightly, like someone who had just let go of a weight he'd carried for years. The basement garage was nearly empty. His footsteps echoed softly across the concrete. His car, an old silver sedan, waited in the far corner. Quietly, but he didn't get in right away. He stood still, pulled out his phone, one new notification, an email. From Everline Ventures, subject line, next step, net loop. He opened the email. It was short, a thank you for sending the pitch deck, a positive note about his approach to the niche market, and an invitation to a virtual meeting next week to talk further. Alex didn't smile, wasn't exactly surprised either. He read the lines again, slowly, like he was carving them into some corner of his mind, not because he needed validation, but because, for the first time in a long time, someone had looked longer than a few seconds. He got into the car, the door shut, sealing out the world. In that small, dark space, his phone screen still glowed. The subject line of the email lit up like a light of its own. Next step, net loop. I'm enough. He didn't say it out loud. It stayed in his mind, quiet but solid. He was enough. Not to prove anything to anyone, but enough for himself. Enough to know he no longer needed to chase approval, no longer needed their nod before taking his next step. He leaned back in the seat, eyes closed for a moment. Flashes of those first nights in the basement came back. He remembered it clearly, that first night, the only light coming from his laptop screen. Instant noodles on the left, a notebook with a few rough sketches on the right. It was cold, no heater. But the code had to run. The UI had to load. The bugs had to be fixed. There were nights he fell asleep at the desk, waking up at 3 a.m. with his back aching and his hands still resting on the keyboard. No one knew. No one asked. Each day had been a quiet negotiation between belief and exhaustion. Keep going or let it go. Stay in the fight or walk away. And every day, he chose to stay, to keep building. He remembered the emails no one replied to. He remembered the first user who signed up for Netloop, a small freight company in Ohio. He remembered their first feedback. We don't understand the setup. So he jumped on a video call in the middle of the night to walk them through it. He remembered the feeling the first time he saw over 1,000 users live on the dashboard. He didn't scream. He just opened the fridge, grabbed the last beer, sat down, and played an old song. Upstairs, the family party rolled on. Maybe someone would notice he was gone. Maybe not. Maybe Ryan would sense Grace had gone quiet. Maybe Diane would wonder why Alex didn't say goodbye. Or maybe none of them would care enough to ask. But that didn't matter anymore. He had never needed them to see him. But today, even for just a second, they did. The party had ended not long after Alex left. No one said it out loud, but everyone felt it. Something had happened. And it wasn't one of the usual petty dramas. It simmered like steam rising from just boiled water, invisible but undeniable. The heat was there. Everyone knew it. The next day, the Morgans gathered for their traditional post-party lunch, this time at the family home. Diane still made her signature roast. The flowers were arranged just right. The table was spotless, the silverware in perfect order. But the air felt different. Alex arrived on time. Not early, not late. He took his usual seat, to the right of his father. No one mentioned the night before. No one brought up Netloop, but no one asked the usual, "So what are you up to these days?" either. There was a silence, right in the place where the backhanded comparisons or light jabs would normally go. Then, for the first time, his father, Mark, broke it. "How long have you been building that thing?" Alex turned to him. His father's voice wasn't sharp, wasn't excited. It was just a question, like asking about fixing the lawnmower out back. "Over 2 years," Alex said. Mark gave a small nod. Just enough to say he'd heard, and this time he was actually listening. Diane didn't look at Alex. She stayed focused on serving the salad. But when he added more meat to his plate, she didn't remind him about portions like she usually did. She didn't mention Ryan, not once during the entire meal. Aunt Marcia exhaled after finishing her plate. "I looked up that Netloop thing. It's not bad." Alex nodded. "Thanks, Aunt Marcia." No one clapped. No one offered congratulations. But no one called him the guy still figuring it out either. No one asked if he was finally ready to settle down, Those words had fallen away, like a layer of skin that had stuck for years, only because no one had ever been curious enough to check what was underneath. Ryan talked as much as usual, but he didn't mention Grace, didn't bring up last night. He kept things polite, appropriate, and quiet when it mattered. As for Alex, he didn't feel triumphant. There was nothing to celebrate, not because he'd won, but because there was nothing left to prove. After lunch, he stayed behind to help his mother with the dishes. For the first time in years, they stood next to each other that long without any tension. Diane handed him a towel to dry his hands, her eyes still on the sink. "I know, I can be a little hard sometimes," she said. Her voice didn't quite sound like an apology, more like a late admission. Alex didn't respond right away. He folded the towel and set it on the counter. "It's okay, Mom," he said. "I know what I'm doing now." Diane didn't say anything else, but she didn't look away. As he left, Alex didn't rush his goodbye. He paused at the door for a few seconds, looking at each person in the room. Not to challenge, not to prove anything, just to let them see. He wasn't hiding anymore. He had never needed them to see. But now, they had. And the rest? The rest was up to them. Some people never say they've underestimated you. They just show it. In their questions, in their comparisons, in the way they look at you like you've fallen short of a script they wrote without asking. But eventually, they fall silent. Not because you shouted, but because the results started speaking for you. Alex didn't change to be accepted. He just kept showing up for what he believed in. He didn't need to be understood. He didn't need praise. But the most powerful part, when their eyes finally had to shift, he was still exactly who he'd always been. Have you ever been labeled a failure just because you didn't match someone else's expectations? Have you ever walked alone, quietly building something, not to prove them wrong, but to prove yourself right? Share your story in the comments. And if you saw a piece of yourself in Alex, hit follow. There's more truth coming, and a lot more masks left to tear off in family drama.